Welcome to the Killer Potential series. Today we're going to talk about why Jason Voorhees should be a killer in Dead by Daylight. Some can avoid being looped, some rely on their map mobility, others rely on a one-shot mechanic. How would Jason Voorhees perform in Dead by Daylight? Would he have strong skills but poor mobility like Pyramid Head? He could have a steep learning curve like Nurse or Huntress. In order to answer this question, we must understand Jason's strategies and techniques for killing his victims. Jason Voorhees is one of the most iconic villains of all time. If we're talking horror villains, the hockey mask wearing Jason Voorhees is right up there with Frankenstein's monster, Count Dracula, and Wolfman when it comes to recognizable monsters. Quick reminder, if you like this video, make sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. I also stream on Twitch on Wednesday and Sunday nights. The link for that is in the description below. All the killers in Dead by Daylight are working under the entity. Some people think that Jason could be tricked into thinking that the entity is his mother, which is why he'd obey the entity's orders. Compared to the killers that are already in Dead by Daylight, Jason seems to be stronger than most. He's not a violent murderer who was instantly swept up by the entity. Jason is much more experienced and unstoppable. So unstoppable, it's almost supernatural. Based on the source material out there, Jason would actually be easier to implement into Dead by Daylight than some of the licensed killers that are already in the game. Pinhead never touches or physically attacks his victims. Yet Behaviour found a way to adapt Pinhead to have the ability to hit survivors and carry them to hooks. Jason Voorhees would be easier to add into the game based on the fact that everything we know about him from the movies matches this idea of cat and mouse that Dead by Daylight is built on. Jason is the main antagonist and centerpiece of the Friday the 13th franchise. There are 12 movies in the franchise and at least 6 of them are deemed to be outstanding. Jason's hulking figure and trademark hockey mask makes him terrifying on screen. And if you combine that with his monstrous backstory of stalking victims for decades, Jason never gets boring. It might get a little ridiculous, but it's always engaging. Jason already made an appearance in the Friday the 13th video game. Should Jason in DBD play similar to how people saw him in that game? Would Jason just be another trapper? There are so many different versions of Jason out there, but which version would be best? There's also a lot of criticisms out there arguing why Jason wouldn't work in DBD. We'll address these reasons, and from there we'll talk about the potential that Jason Voorhees has in Dead by Daylight, and this killer's influence on the future of the game. In Friday the 13th Part 1, we actually don't see Jason until the end of the film, but there is a takeaway from this film that has major potential in Dead by Daylight. Jason appears in what's considered to be one of the greatest jump scare endings in horror history. The audience is left with the terrifying notion that Jason still lives in Crystal Lake. When this film hit the big screens in 1980, Camp Crystal Lake became an iconic location in the horror genre. The biggest takeaway from the first Friday the 13th movie that could be implemented into Dead by Daylight is the map Camp Crystal Lake. A Camp Crystal Lake map on Dead by Daylight would probably be based on the part of the map where all the cabins are. We'd expect to see 7 generators scattered across the grounds and inside the cabins, vaults in and out of the houses similar to the Friday the 13th video game, and Easter eggs from the Friday the 13th movies. At the bottom of the map, you can reach the dock in the actual lake. Behaviour could even implement a cool feature where survivors can semi-submerge themselves in the water. I don't know how the doctor would survive going into that lake. There's also potential for a small stairway in each cabin that could connect all the cabins. It's a map that would have single-story buildings like Springwood and damp, dark grounds like Backwater Swamp. This summer camp for kids located in Crystal Lake, New Jersey had 22 years of uninterrupted good times, until the Christies hired Pamela Voorhees, who brought along her deformed and mentally handicapped son, who drowned in the lake in the summer of 1957. This caused Pamela Voorhees to kill 2 camp counselors in 1958, which shut down the camp. Some think that this justifies the potential for Pamela Voorhees to be a legendary skin for Jason. She's technically decapitated by the sole survivor of her killing spree, and later her spirit guides Jason on his own killing sprees. So Pamela's spirit could also be a part of Jason's power, giving him some sort of map awareness or aura reading ability. Or maybe Pamela could trigger a frenzy mode of some sort, similar to Legion or Trickster. But this is just the starting point for Jason's potential in DBD. The main reason Jason Voorhees would be an outstanding addition to Dead by Daylight is because he's a prolific serial killer. He's killed well over 200 people, and we start to see this in the second installment in the Friday the 13th franchise. He has superhuman strength and is tough to destroy despite shootings, stabbings, and axes to the head. Apparently he died a number of times but was brought back to life by a lightning bolt, by a girl with telekinetic powers, and by a submerged power cable. We don't actually see Jason wearing his hockey mask until Friday the 13th Part 3, so the Friday the 13th Part 2 Jason could be a very rare skin. In Dead by Daylight, the slasher's power could revolve around his rage and hatred. When engaged in a chase, you can activate his ability to channel unstoppable force. While channeling, you are slowed, similar to Michael's stalking. When the channel is completed, which takes around the same time that Billy's chainsaw does, the slasher gains a 10% faster movement speed. If a pallet is dropped on the slasher in this state, the pallet breaks and the slasher is slightly slowed for 5 seconds afterward. The slasher can walk through drop pallets to break them instantly in this state. When the channel is fully charged, the survivors are given an auditory warning, which is Jason's iconic theme music, and the slasher raises his machete. This state lasts for 60 seconds, and after it's been used, the slasher cannot do it again for 30 seconds. The slasher's Mori could be picking up the survivor and stabbing them repeatedly in the stomach with his machete. He then breaks the victim's back by slamming them down over his knee as Jason's main theme song plays. One of the main criticisms for Jason in Dead by Daylight is he would play too similar to Trapper. There's no question that the Trapper was based on Jason. Let's look at the Trapper DVD trailer and compare it to this scene with Jason. One of the best arguments justifying that the two are different enough claims that the Trapper and Jason aesthetically aren't similar. One uses bear traps and the other will fold you in half. Behaviour already licensed Bubba after Hillbilly came into the game, so a lot of people don't really see this as a problem. As long as Jason's power and aesthetic is different from Trapper, he's definitely fit to be his own killer in DBD. One major difference between them is Jason has the superhuman ability to come back from the dead. Many people assume that the supernatural elements weren't introduced until the 6th movie, but that's simply not true. At the beginning of the final chapter, Jason is incapacitated in the barn after Ginny hits him in the head with an axe at the end of part 3. He's declared dead and is taken to a local hospital. It is highly unlikely that he was misdiagnosed, as many different people had to check for him for signs of life. This is because for a brief period of time, Jason was dead from his wound. They removed the axe and his body began to heal, an ability that was confirmed in Jason X, and he was revived at the hospital. Jason as a legendary skin for Trapper probably wouldn't be doing this character justice. Being chased by a Jason skin on Trapper would not feel the same as being chased by Jason. Jason shouldn't be just another Trapper in Dead by Daylight. One of Jason's major strengths in the movies is his resourcefulness. Jason should have map presence as part of his power, as a lot of fan theories believe he's able to teleport. Even if this ability to magically appear out of nowhere is just a trait that most horror movies have, Jason is always able to jump scare, terrify, and keep up with his victims. So baked into Jason's power should be the ability to freely teleport across the map, without having to place a portal, trap, or have a generator there. This teleporting ability shouldn't be instant like the nurse and take time to charge like Freddy Krueger. Therefore, Jason with the teleporting power like this wouldn't be a ranged killer, and will move at 4.6 meters per second and have a 32 meter terror radius. This way, Jason will excel in chases with his pallet breaking ability whenever he's in close quarters with survivors, as well as have strong map presence, making him a higher tier killer. When Jason does come into Dead by Daylight, it's going to be one of the biggest chapters to ever hit DBD. There were millions of people hyped for the Friday the 13th video game, so a chapter like this might even be bigger than the Stranger Things or Resident Evil chapter. Both of those chapters spiked up the player count in DBD. A Friday the 13th chapter could come in with one of the 3 end of the film girls from the first 3 movies, but Behaviour hasn't really prioritized this. The Hellraiser chapter came with no Kirsty Cotton, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre chapter came with no Sally Hardesty, and the Freddy Krueger chapter came with no Nancy Thompson. Tommy Jarvis would be the best option for a survivor. He's heroic and is the first known male to survive Jason's rampage. He's the only one to defeat Jason twice. He fought an imposter Jason in part 5 and then trapped an undead Jason in part 6. Every other Friday movie always introduced a new hero to stop Jason. Tommy is the only character to do it more than once. We'll definitely post videos if there's any Jason Voorhees news or DBD speculations that come out. Let me know in the comments below if there are any other killers you'd like me to talk about. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.